again. It's a redskin.
That's going to be the last time we see that particular animation. It'll be a different book next time. Hello, Right On Writers, and welcome to Books by Adrian, and this is Tuber Book Club. I am your host, Adrian Santiago. I believe I have that queued up somewhere. Maybe I don't, but it's Tuber Book Club. Hello and welcome. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Lets you know when I go live, when I post videos, and all that kind of good stuff. Today is a very special episode of Tuber Book Club. We are interviewing the great and powerful Kent Shawn. We are also announcing the winner of our next book poll, and I'm very, very excited. It's going to be fun. We're going to announce that at the end of the episode because I want to keep Richard sweating the entire time. Let's see here. We're going to go over stuff like what you can get at our store. We have a very beautiful, in fact, let's do that now before I bring everybody out. We have a beautiful commemorative Kent Shawn interview shirt for all the Kent Shawn lovers out there. And there is a handy dandy discount code scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now, BISFOK. If you are a Kent Shawn fan, figure out what that means and throw it into the chat. Let's see. Let's go ahead and welcome the panel because that takes care of our business for today. Our panel today consists of two of our, four members? And we're adding a new member next book I'm very excited about as well. Let's go ahead and welcome to the stream the lovely and wonderful Shannon Houston.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am well. Tell everybody at home how you're doing and what's going on with you lately.
Well, my name is Shannon. I write under the pen name SC Houston, and I have a YouTube channel under the name of SC Houston where I run weekly writing sprints on Friday mornings. So you can catch that this next Friday. And I also put out a video usually on Tuesdays, which I got one up today. I am 1/3 of the trio who interviews authors on our self-publishing tips and tricks show, which you can find on my YouTube channel. And I do that with Morgan Lee and Ben Pick from Running to Write, which he just had a video come out on Adrian's channel this past Sunday. So make sure you catch that. And then I'm also one half of the duo with Jenna O'Malley, who's in the chat today, doing the first AuthorTube Writing Conference of 2022. It's coming to the AuthorTube YouTube community in July. But we still have signups available for those who have anything they want to present on writing and or publishing. And the requirements are, do you have a YouTube channel, an AuthorTube channel where you talk about writing and or publishing? And if you do, you can sign up. So you don't have to have, thousands or more subscribers. You can have less than 500 and still sign up to present.
Awesome. Very cool. Everybody take advantage of that. That sounds really, really cool. Let's go ahead and welcome our next panelist, Colin Clark. Finally, the man, the myth, the legend.
'Tis I. Colin Clark.
How's
Colin everyone?
Clark. How are you, bro? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And my new PC, the other one's buried now, with all due process and prayer. But yeah, it's gone.
Well, I'm glad that you're back. I'm glad that your situation has fixed itself. And why don't you go ahead and give everybody at home a nice little update on what's going on with you lately?
Absolutely bugger all. Yeah, 'tis I, Colin Clark. I'm an author tuber. You'll find me and my good friend Adam Stevenson, who's in the chat there, doing our lives on the Writer's Files. Other than that, I'm an audiobook narrator and busy with that. And a sometime writer now because I'm too busy doing the other stuff. But yeah, check out my channel and have fun. But keep subscribing and supporting the good Books by Adrian. Superb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the love, Colin. Yes, the signups are open for Tuber Book Club indefinitely now. You can just sign up whenever you want. I do have to draft up a new welcome email because it used to send you to the poll, and that's not a thing anymore. So I have to remember to do that when we're done here. That being said, I'm very, very excited because today we are conducting our interview, our post-book interview. I've never done this before, read the entire book, discussed it openly on the internet, and then interviewed the author. So this is going to be fun and interesting. Let's go ahead and very quickly say hi to the chat before we bring out the man himself. Shannon, thanks for being here bright and early and pumping up that like button. Richard, hello, welcome. He says he's got his non-alcoholic champagne for the announcement later. Okay.
Yeah,
It's gonna win.
Yeah, I'd get some alcoholic stuff, Richard, if I were you.
I'm digging the confidence, Richard. I'm digging the confidence. We'll see what happens. We'll see what I don't know. I don't know who won yet. Showed my love to the hey, what's up, dude? Jenna, to Tim, Colleen Clark. Who else is here? Adam, welcome, Adam. Hello there. Richard said hi to Adam. Jared, what's up, dude? Amber's here. Hello. So many people here. Curl Girl, I believe I've seen you here a couple of times. You're from Kent's side of things. He's coming, I promise. Bethany, hello, you're here. And,
Yo.
All right. Does Bethany have her victory drink ready and available as well? That's what I want to know.
Always. So nice.
Yes, the tapestry, because the bare wall on live stream Sunday really bummed me out. So this is as good as I can do for now. We'll see. It'll be Nightmare Tenant next time because Bethany got here. All right. Yeah. Oh, we have somebody who figured it out. Butts in seats, fingers on keyboards. That's right. Very good.
Well done.
Very good. He's here, ladies. All right, you guys. I think it's. I can't hold them back any longer. It's time to bring him out, ladies and gentlemen. Help me to welcome the great and powerful Kent Shawn himself. Kent Shawn, how the hell are you?
Bravo.
This was such a dramatic introduction. I feel like I should do a trick, but I don't know any tricks. So
can you do a backflip? I want to see a backflip.
Maybe 20 years ago, but not now.
Yeah, plays a mean guitar.
That's true. He does play a mean guitar. I've seen and can attest to that. Kent. Yes. Hello, and welcome, Kent Shawn. I mean, everybody's here for you. I can't imagine there's anybody watching this that doesn't know who you are. But just in case, let's go ahead and every show is everybody's first, right? Somebody's first.
Okay, so I'm Kent Shawn, and I identify as a meat popsicle. If anybody knows that reference, please put it in the chat. I'm the author of the Millennium Tower series, Collision, Blind Spot, Forbidden, and this coming month, Forsaken, and also a short story collection called Evil Grows in the Dark. I also occasionally post videos to YouTube about writing and anything I think is funny, which is generally anything involves someone else getting injured or a catastrophe. So there'll be explosions, fart jokes, and both my kids and my two hellhounds, Cap and Bucky, if you want to come watch some of my videos. That's me.
That's Kent Shawn in a nutshell. How did he get into that nutshell? I do not know, but there he is. Hello. Now, I wanted to start out with, I did want to let everybody know, scrolling across the bottom, label questions for Mr. Kent Shawn with a Q. We're not going to have like a separate question and answer section or anything. It's a full-on interview, and the guests can shout them out as they come. Let's go ahead and throw up the very first one.
Yeah,
is Windex
Richard.
Any good for polishing the mirror of guilt, or do you recommend any other brand?
Windex any good for polishing the mirror of guilt? No, it is not. There's your answer.
What can polish the mirror of guilt?
Redemption.
For some reason, Richard does not like the mirror of guilt thing. He basically taunts me with it nonstop.
I don't know why he doesn't like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a very interesting concept.
To each their own. It's all good.
Jenna, I wish you would elaborate on this. What is your question about Harriet?
Can you guys hear me?
Favorite or not. Yeah, we hear you, Shannon. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I asked a question and then I said something else and no one answered and I was like,
no, I didn't hear a question. Go ahead.
I said, what can polish the mirror of guilt?
I don't think the mirror of guilt is for polishing. So actually, the mirror of guilt comes from a long line of myths and
I was actually going to ask about that.
And the name of it I like the idea of reflection. So from comic books to mythology, on and on and on, one of the worst tortures you could give to the villain is to make them see the world through the eyes of their victims. And I always thought this was such a hard-hitting concept to me. And even recently, and in comic books, Ghost Rider would do that. They call it the penitent's stare. He'd stare into their eyes and make them feel what their victims felt. So I wanted to take that one step further and find out what would happen if not only did you empathize with your victim, but that you did it so much that you decided you'd rather be them than you. And then I took that a step further, and we might talk about that later, is how could that become a path to redemption? To understanding that we are not a thing in and of itself. We are who we choose to be. And probably something we'll talk about today is how much I think stories and characterization are about choice. And basically stories are units of change. And then the forks in the road are your choices. So what I wanted to do was to present my protagonist with a really unusual choice. And I could just say, like, real briefly, Blind Spot was meant to be a short story about mistaken identity. And it was very early. Basically, I had been writing for a long time, but not showing anybody anything and not finishing anything. So I finally decided I was going to finish novels. I finished my first novel, Children of Doom. And right after that, I wrote a short story and finished it. And I realized I can't stop. As soon as I finish one thing, I have to start the next thing immediately. And I don't mean immediately that week. I mean the same day. So I started immediately starting the next thing right away. And what I decided to do with short stories is to try the hardest thing I could think of to pull off. So this kind of explains why Blind Spot is a very unusual novel, maybe not normally the way you would plot a genre novel like this, because I was trying to do something incredibly difficult.
It's definitely bold for a debut. Like we were talking about that in the book club, how like you were really pushing some boundaries in your very first work, or your first public work. I know it wasn't the first thing you ever wrote or anything, but
no. See, I just followed a short story called Lydia, which leads off my short story collection, in which they say never write a white room. So I'm like, I'm definitely going to do that. And then with Blind Spot, what I wanted to do was to see how far I could give everyone all the evidence in the world that something was true and still have them continue to doubt it. Sometimes even past when I've revealed what the truth is. And judging by the tons of emails I've had back on the book, it achieved that. So I'm really happy about that. It was a serious risk in more ways than one. In fact, this book is essentially a giant pile of risks. So I just wanted to see what I could pull off. And it wasn't meant to be a book, it was meant to be a short story. And originally I did not have any idea that there would be angels and demons or any supernatural element in it whatsoever.
Well, you've spoken before on the channel that you pantsed this this book.
But to put that in context, The Mirror of Guilt, I didn't even remember that I titled it that. I think that actually was just something that stuck after I started writing it. They just called it The Mirror, because what I wanted to say was that, sociopaths and psychopaths, not only do they lack empathy, they lack a real understanding of themselves. They cannot see themselves for what they are. They think that what they're doing is normal and what everybody else is doing doesn't make sense. So I wanted to see what happened when you put potentially one of the worst violent sociopaths into the mind of his latest victim. And then his latest victim was also the husband of a murdered wife, which if you read Collision, you get to actually see that happen. So I wanted to take those two elements, the memory of the murder of Annie Benz, John's wife, and his instincts as a killer, juxtaposed with the idea that I'm a cop, I'm a protector, but at a very shallow surface level. Some of John's memories, some of John's thoughts and feelings, but only a flash of them. The real core of him was still the killer, and I tried to bring that out over and over. Whenever he's confronted with the forces of light, you might say, instead of wanting to help them out, he suddenly feels an uncontrollable urge to twist their heads off and shoot them and do all that stuff. So that was what The Mirror of Guilt was about. It was a challenge to myself as a writer to try to do something incredibly difficult, which is to pull off the idea of seeing the world through your last victim's eyes and having it bring you to a choice. Two choices, really. One, to acknowledge that who and what you have ever been is not just bad, it's evil. And number two, to have the daring to face harsh consequences in order to be somebody new, which is the last thing that happens in the book. Is Lucifer makes him think he's having a heart attack and the cops are closing in and everything's falling down around him. He goes, hey man, I'm not making you make any promises. I'll just give you a reprieve. All you got to do is take my gift. And you can avoid the fire. You can avoid the consequences. You'll still be Damien Rehnquist, but maybe it's not so bad this time. Maybe I don't have you. I wanted to put him to that final choice. And that's what really redeems him, is when he turns that down and he's willing to face the consequences for his actions, even if it's hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
You got everything, Shannon. You nailed everything.
He was watching and raving most about your analysis, Shannon. Yeah.
Well, I was hoping that it wasn't going to be like, yeah, oh boy, she hated my book, because I didn't. I liked it.
You definitely got almost all the concepts, and really early. Most people, even though I show them John under the sheet, even though I show them,
She caught that stuff before me, and
I show them when Wainwright hits Damien with the curse that is the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we know that happens after John dies, the whole thing, even though we show Wainwright shooting him in the gut and he has a wound to his gut, I wanted to see if I could still make you doubt it through his internal monologue. So that was the challenge.
I just threw a poll into the chat regarding everybody's favorite hero character from the book. We'll throw a villain one up in a little bit. Just wanted to tell everybody to go over there and vote on that. That's going to be fun to find out.
I did. Yeah.
Now, my panelists brought questions. I would like to open the floor to Shannon first, and then Colin, and we'll just go round and round and interject some chat questions while we go. Shannon?
Okay, so there are a lot of depictions of Lucifer in other novels and shows, like the show Lucifer on Hulu. Love that show. Did any of these inspire you for how you created your Lucifer character, or what thinking did you have in mind when you created him?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't create him. I just had him walk on and talk, and then I created him. So in terms of the Lucifer TV show, I'd read the comic book, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I did the book. What I was trying to think of was a concept about Lucifer that maybe hadn't been touched before. And the thing that immediately came to mind was the guy can't win. I mean, it's prophesied he's going to lose. So I try to put that in my head and ask myself, well, what would you be like? What is your purpose for getting up in the morning? And I didn't really think it would be spite and hatred for humanity. I always felt like Lucifer's falling out with the Father was over a difference in moral beliefs. I think Lucifer thought he had just as much right to make a choice as human beings did. And I think he also thought that if you wanted company, if you wanted to make company in the form of angels and humanity, why wouldn't you make them equals? Why would you place them all below you to be judged by you? So I thought, what would it be if he was a rebel that made a stand and just lost? And now here he is on earth, a fraction of what he used to be, second only to the top. And then knowing he'll lose every day of his life and having to live a long, long life with that knowledge. How would he spend his days? And I would think he'd just try to keep himself busy. But that's going to change. If you keep reading the Millennium Tower series, Lucifer's arc is approximately 5 books long. So, and he's going to end in a very different place than he started.
Nice.
He changes a lot even in Forbidden. And I didn't intend that originally. This wasn't intended to be a series. I'd like to talk about that too, since Bethany Votel's in here. She had a lot to do with that. She's my main critique partner. And the intention was just to write a really different Lucifer. So I put myself in that headspace, and that's what I tried to do. I kind of got away from the idea of him as almost like a shapeshifter between the different old stars of the stage and screen. And instead, I tried to push him towards a character that's looking for his way out. But that change happens after Blind Spot. So for the Blind Spot version of Lucifer, the main thing I was trying to do is just not write another stereotypical Lucifer. That was the goal.
I liked him. So I think you did good with that.
I liked him a lot. Yeah. Colin, do you have a question?
I do, having crossed 2 off already because Mr. Shawn answers them before I get to them. Yeah, I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, I'm assuming I know that Harriet was originally intended to be male.
Oh, yeah.
And then once, the thing I'm trying to get at, I don't know, can we use spoilers?
Oh yeah, we're talking. Yeah, we read through the book.
I know you did. I watched both episodes. They were fabulous. I wasn't there, but yeah,
we missed you. We missed you a lot.
That last bit there to me is so poignant and sums up John's redemption in my mind. Anyway, I don't know so much about Damien's, but is you were pantsing this, and I know you're a planner. Tell me. You planned that ending 3/4 of the way through the book, and then you realized just how much, and excuse my language, it's after 9 o'clock here, how much shit you put Harriet through in the sequel.
Now, we haven't read the sequel yet, Colin. Let's not on the book club. We'll get to that eventually.
Sorry, but if you haven't read it, go out, buy it, read it.
I've read it. He does put her through some crazy shit in that sequel.
Poor
And,
girl.
that would make me wonder, is the poll like, because Harriet was my least favorite character in the book. Not that I'm saying that nobody else has to not like her, but Harriet won in the poll, and I'm
you're wondering if it's colored by the sequels.
By the sequel, yeah, because I do not like
possible.
Harriet. But I liked Harriet all the way into that last decision that she made, and then I didn't like her no more.
You turned on her real hard, real fast.
I did.
I'd like to
wait a minute. Can I hear? What did you say again, Shannon? I missed some of that.
She was referring to at the end when Harriet makes the decision to pull the trigger. That's when she turned. Shannon turned and no longer liked Harriet anymore after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got. There's 2 things there. I would love to answer for you. So,
wait, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt Colin? I'm sorry.
No, it actually meshes together really well. So
no, you can't interrupt me, Shannon. You know that I'm calm.
Yeah, calm Colin. Hashtag calm Colin.
Calm Colin.
So here you go. First of all, I write lots and lots of female characters, and when I just finished writing Children of Doom, I don't know my own book titles. I had written a female lead with a really cool character arc, I thought, and I spent a lot of time inside a female's head. So when I wrote Lydia, which was basically 2 guys in a white room, and then I wrote Blind Spot, which at the time I think I was a little burnout on. I spent a lot of time in a female character's head. I was a little burnout, and I didn't write any females in Blind Spot. There were none. And then when I finished it, I'm like, what is wrong with this? When I was rereading it, I'm like, there's something wrong. It struck me as wrong.
Yeah.
And it hit me over the head. I'm like, where is the feminine side of the, which to me is an archetypical thing, a Jungian thing, and like a story is lacking without it. You're gonna make an imbalance, and people will know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a coincidence. It's not good. So I went back and I looked at the characters, and I considered gender flipping. Actually, I considered gender flipping Lucifer. But then I thought that came off like a trick. And so I decided to stay more canonical with him. And then I also considered gender flipping John.
That's what I thought you were going to say the first time. Mm-hmm. I was surprised.
Yeah. I was just looking for a way to inject an archetype in there, but I thought, why not make it the hero? And to me, the hero archetype is sometimes the simplest to write and the hardest to get right. So I thought I'd challenge myself to do that. So in the rewrite, the scenes that felt flat that I was thinking about cutting before suddenly weren't flat, and Wainwright's character got better because instead of an old, tired, wanting to retire cop, I didn't just change the gender, I changed the entire dynamic. I wanted it to be a young up-and-comer that had just lost a beloved mentor. And I thought that not only did it satisfy more of like the hero's journey to have a clear mentor figure and a transition between mentors. She transitions from dead John to live Wainwright as her mentor. To me, that just gave so much more depth. So I really did rewrite the book, every single scene that she was in, and made her a star character. Now, as to whether she was likable or not, I wasn't striving for likable, Shannon. As I was rewriting it, it was when talking to my CP, my critique partner, about series and what we were both starting to publish and what we were going to publish first. I had no intention of publishing a series first. I was just going to put out Blind Spot as a novel, just put it out just to get through the process of putting a book out. But as I rewrote it, I really got into the concept of maybe trying to turn this into more like a serial, not the same characters over and over, but a serial in this version of Los Angeles. That isn't what I ended up doing. However, what I needed to do on the final rewrite was to have someone carry on now that John Damien are gone. And what I thought I'd do, instead of make it someone that, you wanted to see win, I thought I would make it someone that's made a huge mistake they have to come back from.
So even though you say you don't try and make her likable, the poll shows that people liked her the most, that she was the most heroic.
Yep. So, and to my next point. So after that, the version that actually went out to beta, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say is it's not the most heroic. She was the most efficient and good at her job. She did what needed to be done. And she killed a bad guy because the bad guy killed her mentor. And I love that about her. She didn't flinch.
What's very interesting about that is I actually agonized over that last chapter. Now, when I was just the original version, when the old cop kills him, the last line was the gun had the last word, and that was it. It just stopped right there. He just turned around and saw him. There's no dialogue. And the last line was the gun had the last word, and I left it to your imagination. So on the rewrites, I couldn't figure out what to do. And one of the things I struggled over was whether or not to foreshadow Harriet's change of heart. Like, when did she become the doubting former a person of faith who doubted their faith? I used something active to show that she couldn't make the sign of the cross like she wanted to when she was a kid. She was actively trying to avoid it. For me, that was the transition. Also, she gets basically orders from Wainwright after she's already said once or twice, I don't want to be an assassin. I want to be the cop. That I want justice. And at one point, he's telling her, you don't understand now. This is beyond all of that. We have to take this guy out. Even if we don't catch Beharit, we have to take him out. And that's because he has inside him the forbidden fruit. So,
hey, Shannon, we just got pronunciation on Beharit. We were all pronouncing it wrong. We were arguing.
Next question.
Can I say something about that, though? I like it when people pronounce things different than what I say. Whatever sounds good in your head, I'm for that.
What was the?
I'm not the tone deaf, so I didn't hear the difference. What was it?
See, because I was saying Beharit, like Bay, Beharit, and this Beharit. It's broken down.
I was actually saying it Beharit.
Me too. I was saying Beharit too.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how I say it. But like I said, I'm more than happy for people to say it their own way. I really want to encourage that.
Yeah, Brian.
Adam is wondering, how did you get into flash fiction and how did it affect your writing? In this case, novel writing. I
can answer easy how I got into flash fiction. It's called Bethany Votaw.
Votaw, yes.
Bethany Votaw.
I never wrote flash, not really. I wrote novels. I wrote novels and short stories, and what I call a short story is 15,000 words. So really meeting Bethany on here on AuthorTube. So we did something called working with an editor, where I was scared to work with editors. I had a brief brush with being agented on my first set of queries, and then being confronted with contracts and scary things and just cut 9 characters. And I realized I don't know what I'm doing at all. I had no idea. And it was too soon, and I didn't want to give up. I just didn't know what I was doing, and the whole thing scared me.
That's how you know it's worth doing, though, right? When it's scary.
Well, that's true, but back then I made a bad mistake probably and didn't do it. But I'm happy about it now. But the point of all this is I don't even remember the question.
Flash fiction. It's on the screen. Flash fiction and how did it affect your writing?
Oh yeah, flash fiction. The thing that I like about flash fiction is the same thing I like about short stories, which is that you get reps. It's like working out. Things that you do over and over again, you get better at.
You get to the end. You get to more the end. You have
to write the end to be good at writing a story. You can't. I say you can't. Some people write an amazing first novel, and I'm not trying to say that you couldn't do that. But in my experience, the way you get good at something is by doing it over and over again, assessing what you did, and going again. So with flash fiction, you can literally do it 10 times in a day easily and still have plenty of energy left over to do your writing. So, and flash requires you to use an economy of words. You cannot just spray words all over the page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the most efficient words to get your points and story beats across.
Exactly.
For sure. Which scene ended up on the cutting room floor that you wished you could have fit in?
Oh, there's two large scenes that were cut. I'm not sure I want to describe one of them because it makes me sound like a really twisted human being. Okay,
if you look at my browser, I look like a serial killer. So,
well, okay.
Yeah, same.
I would say the biggest scene that got cut was the original way that Beharit reunites with John was not in the basement under Hedo nightclub. Originally, Shifty tore John almost completely to pieces, and he manages to win the day pretty much in the same fashion he did in the dried out riverbed, so to speak, of the concrete LA River. And he kind of picks John's pieces up and takes him with him, and he's carrying John in pieces as he's healing. But when I wrote it, it was too gross for me to reread it comfortably, so I got rid of it and put it in the. I also wanted to get the idea. Also, it wasn't just because it was gross, but it was because I wanted to have the idea that John/Damien had been on that work table many times before. And if you read Collision, you'll see the first time the doctor injects him with the elixir, and you kind of get the vibe of how their relationship grew horrible over time.
We got to read this prequel, man.
So,
you must.
So yeah, that was the one I cut. The other one was this long thing with Shifty, but I realized I've already made this point in the first scene with Shifty, and by finding an action for him to do while he's talking to Lucifer that shows his depravity. I didn't need to show him being depraved one more time. I was going to show him in a transaction selling human trafficking, and I just thought, I've already made the point. There's no reason to do it again, so I'm just going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. One more question from the chat, and then we're going to throw it back to our panelists. I have one right here. I know you've talked about it before, but could you please talk through how you changed from being a pantser to a plotter?
Okay. Well, this cracks me up a little bit because I said I would never plot anything, and I was adamant that I wouldn't. So I pantsed my first few novels, actually 1, 2, 3, 4 novels. Maybe it was 3 and a kind of like 15 story beats kind of thing. But so what I did was I wrote, when I learned to finish, I wrote Children of Doom, just decided I'm finishing no matter what. Came out just under 200,000 words. Pretty long if you're going to be going trad pub for a first novel. Makes it difficult. And also I realized that I kept going down roads where I wasn't sure what I was going, and some of them were good. And that's actually the problem, because it's really hard to cut something that you write that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But it may actually take away from the book. I found that it is far more difficult for me to excise or sever a large limb of story that I've already written. It's much easier to do that in the outlining process. That's the first thing, going down false paths. And it took me longer than it should to write the book. Number 2, I started studying story structure and psychology really hardcore. Because I asked myself, why couldn't I make edits that an agent asked me to do? And it's because I didn't understand the constituent parts of a story. I needed to find out what they were. Yeah, even if I'm going to pants it, I should at least know what the structure is. And I know a lot of people don't like hearing that. They don't want to hear, I just write what I feel and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but
Pantsers.
their stories are a thing. And they have parts.
Shannon's a pantser, right? Is that right? Shannon's a bit? No?
No.
I'm a plantser, so I do
That's right,
very
we talked
small
about that.
outlines to my main points, and then I like to discovery write in between my points.
Even though I am a hardcore plotter now, I absolutely discover right all the time. If I'm feeling something or a scene pops in my head, I just write that puppy.
Yeah, go for it.
Figure it out. I found a way to not have the plotting take away from discovery writing, because you need that element too. Because some of the coolest things come out. If you only can write your plan, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And so I would probably call myself a planter too, but I do a lot of planning in the first place. But what I'm looking for are the big structural points.
Story beats.
Not grace notes or a cool character to walk on to set and do a great job and end up a big part of the story. I'm ready for that anytime. But what I cannot miss out on are important things. I use 3x structure, Aristotelian 3x structure, although occasionally I'll have 2 climaxes in my second act, but especially in longer books. However, what I would say is that even if you like to make things up as you go, a story is a thing. If you are missing parts of this thing, it ceases to be the thing you're trying to create. The example I always use is a chair. There are many different kinds of chairs, some that are so different that you can hardly distinguish one from another. But if it does not have something to hold it up, something to sit on, this thing is no longer a chair. There are parts to a story that you cannot get rid of. And I think the most fundamentally, this comes down to something called the 5 commandments of story, which is inciting incident, progressive complications, crisis, climax, and resolution. And without that, now people call them different things. You're like, I don't go by that, I go by this. And then they tell it to me and I'm like, so that's the same thing. Same thing with the hero's journey. Like, I don't do that, I do the story wheel. I'm like, that's the hero's journey. No, I do 15 plot points. That's the hero's journey. It's a human psychological thing. But whichever one of those methods works.
Yeah, whichever works. Yeah.
Nothing against it.
Because they're all the same.
They're all the same thing, but some speak to different people in better ways. In which case, use that. Absolutely. I'm a big believer in the hero's journey, but that came through study. After pantsing multiple novels, and I think what really changed my mind is I wrote a novel called Parallels, and it was 250,000 words with like 16 major characters. And it's all over the place. And once again, I wrote a bunch of good scenes in the middle I couldn't cut. And I realized I'd made a giant mess. And I spent, 7 months of my life writing the first draft of this thing. And then I was just like, okay, there has to be a way for me to not go down all these false paths. Because I have so many stories I want to tell. My number one complaint about writing is I don't have enough time to write all the books I want to write.
Me too.
So I wanted to find a way to cut out the BS of going down wrong paths. So I did that by reading Carl Jung, by reading Joseph Campbell, and by reading a lot of script writing gurus. And then I kind of took all of that stuff and mashed into a stew. And then over a period of about another 5 or 6 books, I'm still not publishing yet. I wrote another 5 or 6 books and started figuring out how to use it. So again, I want to say this to anybody that wants to learn to plot. Don't take away your discovery writing. If the muse hits you and something starts coming off the fingertips and you're jazzed and you just can't stop, don't stop. If it goes off the plan, you can fix the plan. Don't worry. It's gonna be fun.
For sure.
But generally, that's how it happened. And now I am a plotter. I plot all of my stuff. I plot it out in advance. And what I'm basically doing is looking for problems so I don't run into dead ends and I don't panic anytime during the story. But I've never been able to stop panicking. 75% through every story I panic. I'm like, this whole thing sucks. Every single time.
It's part of it. At this point, panicking is part of the process. Yeah.
That's how it goes.
The chat settled on Lucifer. No surprise there, 53%. But Damien was a close second. Very close.
That's interesting to me. You thought of Lucifer as a villain.
I do. I do think of Lucifer as a villain. Even if he doesn't have an antagonist role in the story, by definition, Lucifer is considered the villain, right?
But he did have an antagonist role because he was trying to get Damien to make that deal.
That too. Yeah, he was seducing. He was trying to seduce Damien over.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Shannon. Oh, sorry, Colin. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Lucifer. Walks like a duck and
Yeah.
talks like a duck.
Yeah.
I
You're
would
round,
think the name is
you're
about
round
a
the
duck.
twist because ducks don't talk. Yeah.
I always tell people that write action, I'm like, you really need to make sure you always have a clear designation: who's the hero, who's the villain, and who's the victim.
Mm.
So in this book, I decided to try to make sure that no one knew who the hero, the villain, and the victim were. That's hallmark of almost every short story I write.
Well, if
I
you
try to
notice,
throw a rule out.
in the poll, I put John on the hero list and Damien on the villain list, even though they occupy the exact same body.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I know that.
You know, I consider them two very different, forces of nature.
That's interesting because, like, I think of them as part of a whole.
Yeah.
So I'm almost everything
It's
I
both.
write. The main theme is order and chaos. Too much order is not good. Too much chaos is not good.
Yeah.
And an imbalance between the two usually results in some kind of catastrophe. So usually when I'm writing, I'm looking for an imbalance in order and chaos, and then trying to find a way to fix it during the book.
As I was reading, I was, every time that John/Damien would have that internal struggle of, do I do this or do I do that? And it was always two very clearly opposite choices, one very John, one very Damien. That to me is the hero and the villain fighting. Like in this particular book, that struggle within himself is hero versus villain, like that's what we were witnessing, just in a very different way. In a new and different way. Shannon, new question?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. So I don't know if this was thought of, was done on purpose, was mistake, or not even thought of, but I am always curious about why blind spot is one word, but in the book it's two.
I never thought anybody would notice that. So everything I write is loaded with Easter eggs. And some of them are a big deal. Some of them are just little whimsical things that I like. I like to use incremental repetition. I like to use hints at something bigger that I never reveal. But in this, it was a very simple idea. It was a very simple concept. Because once I decided it was going to be a series, I wanted the blind spot to go from something the supernatural world didn't really know about, and we're just discovering, because Beharit was the first one that discovered it and manipulated it, to becoming a really big deal. So where first you refer to something with two words, like this is this, this and this, and then it becomes a thing that's talked about, whispered about, potentially that's frightening or causes an emotional reaction or is revered or awed. And I wanted it to slowly go from two words to one word, but maybe over the period of a couple books.
Okay.
But I started jumping to one word right in forbidden. I didn't push it as far as I wanted to. I can't believe you even noticed that. That's like 3 sentences in my notes from like 7 years ago. So kudos to you. I can't believe you did that. What I find really hilarious is when people email me. I've got quite a few emails about blind spot. One of them telling me that I'm an absolute horrific, blasphemous monster, but that's okay.
That's par for the course. You expect that one.
However, almost everybody does blind spot with one word, which just tickles me pink every time it happens.
Because in the book itself is 2 words. Every time that we would run into blind spot 2 words in the book, Shannon would shout it out. She was like, "Oh, there's another one."
Yeah, I can't believe
Or those responses from your the people who email you, it's probably just easier to email it as one word versus type a space and then do another word.
Ease of typing.
yeah,
A little psychology in there for you.
it makes me feel like I'm playing with people's brains, and I really like doing that.
Colin, before we take your next question, I wanted to throw this one up before I forgot because it's way back in the chat now. Was it really Damien who repented if he became John in his mind through the mirror? I really feel like the elixir changed the effect of the mirror and that it was more John than Damien in the end.
Okay, that's an interesting way to think about it. So the way I thought about it, is your name Maggie? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Maggie, the way that I conceptualized this is that John is dead. And when I say dead, I mean he's gone. He's gone on to his reward. And believe me, he earned it, if you know anything about his backstory. Didn't have an easy life. but the echo of who he was, so what the mirror does is it shows you the world through your victim's eyes as it pertains to you. So John has been hunting Damien for years. He's the country's greatest manhunter. He goes after the most savage criminals, and the one that he could never catch was Damien Rehnquist. And so he absorbs all of John's pain that he's gone through in the last 3 years. He lost his wife. He had a drug problem. All this was in Collision, and all of these things at once he got in 1 second, and it hit him so hard. It should have either killed him or made him get down on his knees and pray for repentance. However, he was shot full of an elixir made from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is too much for any human being to handle. So his perceptions of right and wrong and his durability, his both psychic and physical durability, are way beyond the extremes that would normally kill a mortal. So instead of, as you say, it did change the effect. So instead of getting down on his knees or his brains leaking out of his ear, what actually ends up happening is that to protect himself, he can't face being Damien Rehnquist anymore. He can't. So he grabs onto those memories and says, no, I'm John. And he does it all at once and doesn't question it, because the only other thing that he could do was admit that he's literally the worst kind of evil that can walk on two legs. And now that he's been made to see it, he can't face it. And that's why throughout the first half of the book, he's in constant denial and fighting it hard as he can, even though he can't remember his birthday. He can't remember going to college. He can't remember any of the pertinent details that you would have from a long life. He doesn't have any of them. All he has is the momentary flashes of insight he got from John being his victim over the last few years.
So in a way, him holding on to that John personality kept him alive longer and kept him going through to the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, at one point he stops holding on to the John personality. I mean, he never had John's personality. Everybody that talks to him knows he's not John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody else was fooled. Only him.
No one's confused but him.
Yeah.
So, and see, I felt by the end he was he gave up the John part of himself, but he was a better Damien. That's what I felt like at the very end.
The John Ben's name stops being an identity for him and starts being a battle cry. In other words, he's saying, I refuse to go back to Damien Rehnquist. Now that I know what I was, and now that I know the harm that I've caused, and now that I can see it through someone else's eyes, which I wanted to basically drill that down to one thing, which is the moment that Annie Benz was strangled. And the only one that saw that was Damien Rehnquist, because obviously John wasn't hanging around watching his wife get strangled. John only saw her in the morning.
He would have, yeah.
So I tried to make that the focal point of that. And then towards the end, the whole idea was that, and this is a recurring theme in a lot of my writing and short stories and books, is every single second that you're still breathing is another chance to turn it all around. No matter how bad you think you are. I actually wrote an experimental piece called Redemption in Evil Grows in the Dark, which is I tried to make kind of a mass shooter find redemption while he's in the act of mass shooting. So trying to tackle hard things, I think that's really one of the most fun things about being a writer. It wasn't really this book I would say was not written for commercial viability. Now the sequels I tried to make more commercially viable, as opposed to just experimental. They're gonna run a lot more like straight up action urban fantasy.
Colin, what's your next question for Kent Shawn?
Wow. No, I'm just sitting here getting a masterclass from my mate.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, all right, man, like save something for the courses.
Next question. Okay.
Yes.
You've done 3 now. Yes.
Well,
perhaps you've now done 4 and 5.
4 is done, and the first draft of 5 is 90% done.
Right. So my question was going to be, this whole universe that you've created, and let's be honest, Blind Spot started as a short story. It's an experimental piece. you hit it straight out of the traps. I mean, it is, you get this statement made all the time. This is an octane-fueled action thriller. Yeah, well, read Blind Spot. You'll find out what octane-fueled and speed that just grabs the reader in the first chapter and grabs them by the, bollocks, and drags them through the whole story until you get to the end and you think, what the hell did I just read?
Well,
and if you're, so I hope that's going on through the next one.
Well, it's a challenge in a series. Like, you write, if you think Blind Spot 1, Blind Spot 2, Blind Spot 3, Blind Spot 4, it's hard to do because I can't do crazy mistaken identity. So each book I've had to come up with a new concept, a completely new concept for each. So luckily, since this touches multiple genres, I have a lot to play with. But I always come back to character choice, which is the most important thing, above gimmicks. So I consider, magic and explosions and all that stuff. Those are gimmicks. They're fun, but they're gimmicks. The most important thing is to put characters through a difficult choice. And I really think there's only two choices that a character can have. And that's the best bad choice or irreconcilable good.
Yep.
Any choice where it's obvious what choice they should make is called boring. So what I'm trying to do in what I've done, I hope I've done in Forbidden and Forsaken, is turn up the stakes from Blind Spot. Blind Spot is about one person. So Forbidden, I broaden that. I broaden the stakes. There's more at stake than just one person's existence. And then in Forsaken, I broaden it to a city's existence. Then there's going to be an in-between novel called Defiance, which I'm almost finished, which is basically to stitch two novels together and to give a character a little time to breathe, who I've come to love, a side character.
Nice.
And then the final novel will be the universe at stake. So the only way I can think of to continue, but all of those stakes will revolve around a personal choice, someone's personal choice. And I that's the only way I know how to construct novels that keep people interested. Is to really dig into, because when I make a character make a choice for high stakes, I feel like the reader gets to put themselves in their shoes and either say, I would do that or I wouldn't do that. And I think it keeps you turning the pages.
Yeah, I'd be sitting there most of the time saying, nope.
Not
cool.
that.
Cool Kent, he's trained.
Yeah.
He's trained in this. I'm not doing this.
Now, Kent, we've got a bunch of questions in the chat. Before I jump to those, one question from me. We talked about this in the book club streams. There is something very crime noir about the way that this reads.
Absolutely.
And none of us could put our finger on why, because you're not straight up doing crime noir necessarily, but it's there. Is it intentional? I can see by your face that it's intentional. What can you tell us about that flavor that you injected into that? Because, like I said, we can't put our finger on it, man. How'd you do that?
So I love old Cagney movies, like a lot. And there's a way of speaking, kind of a clipped way of speaking. So instead of making all of the characters speak that way, they do a little bit, especially Wainwright and Shifty. I mean, the cops talk like cops. John talks like John. But the narrative voice, what's the first line? Something like the neon sign lit Shifty's face like a blinking light at a flop house or something. Right. I wanted it to sound like that inner city, hard-boiled, clipped, a little shocking. I think in the original version, I actually drop an F-bomb in like the first sentence. I see Shannon's got a paperback copy, so she's probably got the original copy. I actually changed that for my look inside to not be quite so off-putting. But
I've got the beta version.
But anyway, I really feel like the crime noir style, you want to hear the narrator like a guy that lives in the seedy underbelly of a city, and he knows all the dark parts of people's souls. And he wouldn't say, I really feel like people in the city have lost a sense of themselves. No. He would say, I live in a city that's nothing but blood and piss in the gutter, and I like it. I drink piss for breakfast. It would be, I don't know why I went with that for imagery, but it would be cut off, no mercy, kind of brutal. And I went with that for the narrator voice. And I think that's why people can't put their finger on it, because the different characters talk like different characters.
Are you doing your audiobook?
Everybody keeps asking me that. I actually just hired the narrator for Blind Spot. Hopefully he's going to do the whole series.
Good.
Nice.
And it took me forever to pick, and I'm getting like 6 auditions to 8 auditions a day. And finally, I got to choose somebody. For like 40 days, I've had.
Is it the guy I told you to pick?
Yeah, actually, yes. Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to do the audiobook, and I do dabble in doing that, and I'm probably going to do Evil Grows in the Dark. I've already recorded several sessions.
Oh, cool.
I'm writing 4 to 5 books a year, so am I going to write less books to have time to do audiobooks, or should I write more books? I think I should write more books.
Write more books.
Very, very nice. On that topic, let's hit the chat. I'm going to do them a little bit out of order here because we just did a nice little segue. How many books have you actually written?
Okay. I think not counting the first draft I'm almost finished, I think it's 15. You could probably try and name them, but that'll be really boring for you to watch me go, what is it? Occasionally I open a folder and there's a file and I go, oh yeah, this one. But sometimes I write really, really fast, like kind of abnormally fast. It's not always. I mean, typically I write 40 words a minute, write a couple hours a day, and that's what I get. But every once in a while I get into this like fever and I just can't stop. And I'll write everywhere. I'll write on my phone, I'll write in my notebook. I'll take my laptop with me to work and ignore everyone and write. So occasionally I'll write a book in 2 or 3 weeks. But typically,
that's crazy.
It depends on
how long it takes me too. 2 or 3 weeks to write a book.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So, but now I tend to outline for 2 to 3 weeks before I start a first draft.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I would I'd write a 100,000 word book in 4 weeks. But a lot of that was just experimenting and trying to learn how to write. So I think it's 15 books. I've written a lot of stuff in the modern era, like contemporary stuff, but with fantasy or sci-fi elements. I've also written hard science fiction. I've written several supernatural thriller type of things. Like my book Parallels was about a teenage interdimensional suicide cult going to college in Oregon. Still some of the best scenes I've ever written in my life for that book. I got to figure out how to fix that book. But again, like I will write in many different genres, and I will almost exclusively write series. But there will be a few standalone books, like eventually I'll rewrite Parallels. That will not be a series. I'm not going back to that world more than once. It's scary.
Right. Sounds like Who are your favorite authors and influences for your writing?
Like a really weird mix of modern and classics. I love Ernest Hemingway. I reread a Hemingway book every few months. I'm a big fan of a lot of kind of dime store fantasy, like Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms. I love Robert Jordan. Kind of more modern writers like Patrick Rothfuss. I definitely have read Game of Thrones about 5 times. Although, good God, man, can you finish your books? He could have literally written every sentence in a 1,000-page book 100 times by now.
Let's not pull at that thread because I'll unravel. I've been waiting for that book for over 10 years, and
But also other influences. A big one on me was Carl Jung. I actually switched majors to psychology, and I just actually graduated with my bachelor's in psychology. I'm just going to go to college forever, get another degree. What else? Who?
Yeah.
So Carl Jung was huge for me, especially archetypes in the collective unconscious. I definitely see that in life. And I know Jung is crazy and you can nitpick, all of the crazy things he did.
Sure.
Instead. But even Freud, even though a lot of his stuff ended up being kind of dead wrong,
Right.
like the psychosexual model and all that's probably not even close to right. However, that he did identify that a lot of things happen below the level of consciousness, and that was really a new idea. And it's really true. We're not one mind; we have many minds. And I use that in my writing, and I try to come up with each character's best friend, worst enemy version of themselves. And I think that helps them occasionally make bad decisions, like Harriet makes at the end of Blind Spot, that she has to pay for in a hard way and forbidden.
And there you go, Shannon. We were talking about that. The whole fact that like you don't necessarily like that action, but the consequences are coming.
Oh, boy.
Can I
Just, you know,
tell
I have my bachelor's in psychology too.
Great.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
That's why she was picking apart your stuff. That's why she knew.
Let me just say that I was trying to walk a tightrope between. I felt like if I foreshadowed her decision too much, that it would take away the shock when she shoots him.
Mm.
I wanted people to be shocked that she shot him. And I actually added one more time she said she wouldn't just kill him to try to not. So if I messed that up, I'm sorry, but I felt like if what I wanted to do, the final scene where she's kind of creeping up to the absolute hell that lose everything shop has become, that was where I was thinking about having her go, what am I doing? Am I going to put cuffs on the devil? What am I doing right now? Yeah. Instead, I focused on the concept that she couldn't leave her new partner is a cherubim, right?
Yeah.
So that she couldn't leave him behind. I focused on that. I don't know if it's a good choice or a bad choice, but it's the one I made.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but for myself, while reading the entire book, the whole time I was trying to figure out what's she going to do in the end. I honestly don't know. Is she going to shoot him? Is she going to arrest him? And it wasn't until the very moment that you're talking about when she's outside in the parking lot where I go, oh, no, she's definitely going to kill him. Like at that moment, that's when I was like, okay, now I know. And then she did.
Yeah,
and I was rooting for it.
Yeah, I didn't know until she pulled the trigger.
You still thought that she was of two minds about it up until the very end.
Well, I was thinking, well, if I was doing this and I was Kent Shawn and he's a complete lunatic, is he now going to spin us all another tale? But no, he went through with it and shot him, which was just. But by goodness, that girl suffers.
Indeed. You once said you struggled with prose. How do you think this book forced you to improve?
Yes.
I don't think I improved at all on this book. I think that was still back in the time when I
poppycock
stunk it, bro. I think that's my biggest weakness is I want to become more efficient with language. I'm always trying to be more efficient. Even you guys that read the digital version that I made for Tuber Book Club, once again I was improving prose by cutting less things. One phrase with the right word in it can stand for 4 sentences of explanation. What I want it to be, and this is, I'm a huge Hemingway fan. He's one of the most efficient writers for building a picture and an idea with very few words. I aspire to do that. I don't want to be quite as stark as he is, but that concept. Another thing that I don't like about my writing, this is really weird to talk about. Another thing that I'm always worried about is that I'm not getting my point across. So I tend to say the same thing 2 different ways. And I'm constantly chopping that high, Amelia. I'm constantly trying to pull that back. So most of my drafts come down by 15 to 18% on the second draft. So Blind Spot I think was originally 62,000 words and ended up 49,000. So that's typical. Forsaken was 150K on the first draft and came out 128.
Amelia's always busting my balls about the water. How much have your kids, family, friends read?
Angelina just talked to me, and so my 14-year-old daughter is my partner in crime and everything. I call her Girl Me.
That's a scary thought.
we're pretty much attached to the hip. She's been on me to let her read this series. I kept waiting till she was a little older.
14 now?
Oh yeah, she's 14.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Pretty sophisticated 14-year-old. And, you know, certain talks in life have to happen for certain things. So, you know, she came to a point now where she's basically worn me down. So I signed a copy of all the books for her and gave them to her. So, but I told her, I said, hey, I marked some chapters. Like, these are the chapters I want you to talk to me about before you read them. and that's how we're gonna go about that. So, she likes horror and blood don't scare her. She watched the movie Rango when she was a little kid. That's how she learned about death, because through the whole movie they go, and he's going to die. Ever since then, she's like, we're all going to die. So, my dad has read everything. My mom just read Evil Grows in the Dark. She hasn't read the Millennium Tower series. I kind of hope she does it. She's very religious.
Yeah.
And
rough.
I don't think my wife's read anything. My wife, however, is a very talented poet and writer.
Right on. I find it very surprising that your father has read all of it. That's crazy.
He is
awesome.
a prolific reader. I seek out his opinion on things.
Beautiful.
He's essentially one of my alpha readers, along with Bethany Vota and Victoria Wren.
Mm-hmm.
And Dawn White.
Daniel says you read a lot of short, punchy sentences reminiscent of Hemingway.
Oh, thank you. Hey, is there any way to send him a cash reward through the comments?
Hey, man, that's all you, bro. That's
Thank
all
you so much. Okay, I can die happy now. I'm done.
He goes on, and your prose is often more poetic than would be average for action and urban fantasy. Are you striving to bring a more artistic flair to genre fiction in your work? Very good question.
You thought Blind Spot was poetic?
I would agree with him.
There were a few lines that were very poetic.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We would I was writing down like favorite lines from each chapter. Shannon wrote down a couple as well, and some of them we would read them out. We were like, damn. You know what I mean? Like when you go.
An example, because I think typically when people think something is poetic, it's just because I was striving for efficiency.
Shannon said, "Challenge accepted."
Well,
It's got written down
somewhere, and I don't know if I can find it now.
Take your time.
I don't like writing in books, so I didn't write it in the book. But I was like, can I find this? I know it's at the end of this one chapter.
We'll go through some more questions until you find it.
So,
when is Forsaken coming out, and what awesomeness can we expect in that book?
What awesomeness? Okay, see that now that's poetic. Amber is a poet, I believe, aren't you? Anyway,
Does she know it?
So Forsaken is done. However, I've chosen to take it through an additional draft after talking with a couple of my really. I have a couple of beta readers that I kind of give things to last after I've made most of my corrections. They're my friends that are super hypercritical, and one of them found a couple things that I want to fix. And I think he's right. Although, upon first reading it, I wanted to cut him in half with a chainsaw. After digesting those comments and then thinking, empirically, he's correct. I'm going to make those changes. And then I'm also having a little trouble with my cover designer who was supposed to deliver this cover 2 months ago, and I still don't have it. So as soon as the cover comes in, I will set a date, but I am going to run it through another draft to try to correct. It's not a major problem, but if it takes anyone out of the story for a minute, this mistake I made, I don't want to do that. Now, what awesomeness can you expect in this? Now, I don't want to do spoilers for Forbidden, so it's very hard.
Too many books ahead, yeah. Just
Forsaken. However, what I will say is it's a much bigger book. There are more villains. There's more angels and many more fallen angels that you get to meet, and new dynamics. People switch sides from the teams that you're usually on. So you're going to see a shuffling of the lines between good and evil, and the stakes are going to raise to the entire city.
Bro.
So
I'm salivating right now. This sounds awesome.
As in Forbidden, I tried to pull off an ending. When I published that book, I was nervous as heck because I didn't know if people were going to be pissed. They're going to like it when I tried to pull that switcheroo on them at the end. And fortunately, it seems to have worked out according to my newsletter responses. I love my newsletter people, but they can write me 50 emails. Could you please just leave a review on the book? You've got time to write me 25 emails.
Kent, thank you very much for that segue. Book club members, there are now 49 of you. First and foremost, I want to thank Richard Holiday for campaigning his ass off for his book because it resulted in a lot of signups. But those of us who have read Blind Spot and have not yet done so, please head over to all the different outlets that you can and post a review for Blind Spot on behalf of Tuber Book Club. Just hype that bee right up.
Some of it, though, I will say, because the book has popped up over 40 reviews before and then come back down into the 20s. So I don't know what's going on with Amazon.
They've been deleting reviews. They've been doing all kinds of weird stuff.
I put a review on Amazon originally after reading the beta reading it. I mean, sorry, when it first came out, but I'd only beta read it at the time, and it was there for an hour and a half and disappeared.
Yeah, the worst thing that happened was Collision, because I gave away Collision for newsletter signups for a while, and it had more reviews than any of my books, more than double of any of my books, and it went down to 2.
Well, I've heard too, if a bunch of reviews pop up at one time, Amazon takes that as like, the author did something.
What, like wrote a good book, for instance?
Yeah, like wrote a
Oh,
well, I'm sure they're thinking
Amazon
they paid
that
for
way.
reviews, but yeah, it's the whole thing.
Yeah, but it's starting to climb again, so great.
yeah. Just look for a review in the name Tracy Parker. That will be me.
Okay, I will say this about reviews, sending you self-published people. It's very difficult working with Amazon on reviews. I probably had 20 or 30 emails back and forth about reviews. I probably lost somewhere in the vicinity of 60 reviews total.
That's crazy, man. That's
but whatever happens, just stay calm. As long as
Game is
people are
rigged.
still downloading your books, every once in a while they'll put in a review, so you'll get them back. But it's important that you bring their attention to it, because they'll pay attention to your account, and you're less likely to have sudden disappearances. Once I started pulling their attention, now I'm not losing reviews hardly at all.
because they're not relying on like the automation anymore. Now they're like consciously.
I don't know how it works, whether it's some
Yeah.
kind of trouble ticket
So-
or they're paying attention.
How do you do it, Kent? Do you take like screenshots of your reviews so you can remember which ones you had, or do you just like, okay, I had 60 today and 30 the next day?
I didn't think to take screenshots until that happened to Collision. It happened to Blind Spot. Blind Spot got up close to 40, and then it dropped into the teens, and now it's worked its way back up into the 20s. But Collision went almost to nothing.
Oh, wow.
So once the day that not the day I had the most reviews, but close to that, I did take a screen cap, and then I sent it into them, and I said, what is going on? And they were unable to retrieve the reviews.
Oh, how surprise.
But now I haven't lost any. I'm adding 1s and 2s here and there, and I haven't lost any. So.
And then do you have a BookBub account?
No.
Okay. So just probably Goodreads and Amazon for reviews then.
Other people put me on Goodreads. I didn't do it.
Yeah. It usually happens that way. Yeah.
I'm focusing on Amazon right now. I will be expanding out and going wide later, but I have this series is an experimental series for me. I have way more commercially viable. I have the first book of 2 other series, 2 different genre series already written. So I'll have 2 new series starting next year.
Okay.
Kent, this may have begun as an experimental series, but once you're talking about 5 books now. What, 5 or 6 if you count Collisions? So yeah, that's not experimental anymore, dude. That's a hardcore awesome series.
It's still experimental because I'm trying
Different things in each book, right?
Things in each book. The stuff I'm trying to pull off by the end of this series. I'm basically doing things that people would probably tell you should never do in a series or a book.
Good. That's why people will continue to enjoy reading them.
For sure.
We'll see.
Keep them coming. When, not if, when this becomes a movie series, which director would have to be confirmed for you to say yes? What's your
Martin
dream director?
Lejeune.
I always say my favorite director would be Zack Snyder if he wasn't working for a studio that could change everything he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, I just dropped his name. The director for Fight Club and David Lynch.
David Lynch.
He's one of my favorite directors of all time.
David Fincher.
Thank you. And I really love his stuff, and I think that
He's my favorite.
chaotic style my writing would go with the chaotic style of his director.
Especially with the way that he handled Fight Club, I think that he would be very, very well suited for this.
I was just thinking of that duality when obviously you've got a non-existent character, and that would work so well.
Yeah,
with
for sure.
Rehnquist and John.
And you know what else he's really good at? Ambiguity. Because Zodiac is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Great
and
movie.
that entire movie is nothing but ambiguousness. And it would be very, very poignant for this series as well.
Haven't seen it.
Oh,
Gotta
dude,
admit.
check it out. It's great. Zodiac, it's a masterpiece. It's fantastic. Let's do another one here. Question: is the elixir purposefully akin to the ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Similar comic franchises?
That's got to be Jenna. Oh, it's Jenna. Yeah.
I was wondering why it was green. I thought, well, it must be green apples, not red apples on that tree.
Well, Kent, before you answer, Jenna, a little fun fact: the ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the same ooze that blinds Matt Murdock and creates Daredevil. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Kent.
It's good to know someone can geek out just as good as I can. Anyway, so Jenna, I will tell you this. By the way, I'm disappointed you're not here. I was really hoping to get to talk to you live. But check it out. So the way this story started, the prologue, the scene with Shifty and Wainwright didn't exist. That was written in the second draft. The way this story started, with me not knowing where it was going, I said I want a guy shot in the stomach, drugged, and everybody thinks he's his worst enemy. That's all I had when I wrote the first sentences. So John in the basement, that's all I knew. And I thought, what's something quirky and clever? So I made it. I was just thinking, let's put a little Halloween into this gangster scene. So I put a black cat with a number on it, thinking either it's going to be 9 lives or the lucky 13 or something. And green just seemed scary. That's it. Later on, I came up with the concept of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You've read Forbidden, haven't you? So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the apples are green, and the tree of life, the apples are red, such as the elixirs made from the trees. As you have found out, there's an elixir from the tree of life as well, of the forbidden fruits, which is where you get the name forbidden from. Anyway, it became something later, as many things when I write. For instance, the way I came up with putting angels and demons in the book was Discovery wrote a sentence, "Do you believe in angels, Jerry?" I didn't know who was talking. I didn't know who Jerry was, and I didn't know why I asked the question. So I wrote a conversation between two guys in a basement, just Discovery writing. And I was like, what would it be like if you were talking to an angel and he asked you if you believed in angels? And I decided the angel talking was creepy. And I'm like, well, what if he's a rebel angel? Like, what would that be? And I'm like, what's the difference?
It's the snowball effect, right?
Right.
Like one leads to the next.
I thought the concept rebel angel, I'm like, you mean a fallen angel? I'm like, no. What if he didn't fall? And how could he get away with it? And that is where all that came from. And I hadn't connected it to Damien Rehnquist yet. And then as I wrote, I just kept trying to come up with a way to connect him. I also did not understand why he didn't know who he was. I kept coming up with a way to try to connect him. I made a horrible problem for myself and tried to work my way out of it. Then I started doing research. Then I started researching the spheres of angels and a bunch of Coptic Christian, Jewish, Egyptian, and a whole bunch of myth and folklore going way, way back. And I tried to blend those elements into a new pantheon of mythology based off of the Christian religion and many others, which also made my palms sweat because I'm like, how many people are going to hate this because it's got Christian stuff in it? A lot of people don't like that stuff.
It was risky. It was risky. Excuse me for coughing. The moment where you said that you knew there was a Jerry, you didn't know who Jerry was, but there was a Jerry there. It made me laugh because I've been getting pages back from my editor, and there's this scene with like this gangster, like mob boss kind of dude, and our hero is on his way up to talk to him, and on his way up he has to deal with both Jerry and Tony. And my editor's like, anytime there's a mob boss, there's always a Jerry and a Tony nearby. And I'm like, And then you said Jerry, and I was like, yep, there he is. There's Jerry.
Well, eventually, I don't like do deep character backgrounds, but I like to at least know, unless they pop out in the story, and in which case I put them in there. But I was like, how does Rehnquist get to LA? Because Rehnquist, he feels more like a New York criminal to me. Feels more like an East Coast criminal, and he's just spreading it around. So I wanted to make it like he had a trail of crime that goes across the country, and he's dragging minions from different places with him until he ends up to take over LA. So he had kind of the more traditional, 5 families, Italian gangsters, as well as picking up people from LA gangs and some of the Midwest gangs that are responsible for running drugs up through South America, through the United States. So I did some research on that. I actually interviewed some people that were prison guards talking about gangs in LA. I didn't want to write a book about gangs, but I tried to put grace notes in from the way that they talk, which actually some of that had to come out. And actually, Barrett Loya did me a big favor. He beta read Blind Spot, and I don't know if he beta read it or if I gave him an art copy, one of the two. Anyway, there was a couple of scenes where I would have the doctor saying some incredibly racist stuff. Because my concept was the doctor is the ultimate racist. He hates the whole human race. So any race he talked about, he was just dropping racist stuff. But Barrett pointed out to me that people are going to just get freaked out by that. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So I took it out. But it was good. It was good advice. But generally speaking, I would say that all of the gangsters in this book have their own blind spot. Matter of fact, everyone in these stories came to have their own blind spot, and I've continued that through Forbidden and in a big way in Forsaken. And you might even get to find out what Lucifer's blind spot is.
So it's like a theme that ties all your books together.
For sure. Nice.
Hopefully the final scene in the final book will tie it all together.
Whoa. Now, you've mentioned painting yourself into a corner and having to write your way out.
I do that on purpose all the time.
That's something that the writer's room from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul talk about all the time, like writing themselves into the most complex corner that they could think of, and then throwing every idea that is just generic and always work. Nope, it's not going to work. This one's not going to work because of this, blah, blah, and just going. One big example that they always give is when Walt and Jesse are trapped in the RV, and the Hank, the DA agent, is outside trying to get in. It's like they're caught. They're as good as caught. How do you get them out of that? And the writer's room took them 2 weeks to figure out how to get them out of that. But it takes the character of Walt about 2 minutes to figure out how to get out of that. And that's why Walt is that, the character is who he is and the writers are who they are. But it makes it look like, oh man, he's a genius. Like, yeah, we worked on that for 2 weeks. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when you're talking about writing yourself into these corners, this idea of like making it purposefully difficult because it's going to lead to really great storytelling in the end. Next question. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Let me see here.
Mama Maggie did say that she thought you did a good job portraying the Doctor's hatred for all of humanity, which I have to say, even though you took out a bunch of stuff like you said, I felt that too. So
yeah, he was a despicable character. I loved him.
I don't know if anyone else asked this, but would you let one of the religious media companies turn your series into movies?
Would they want to?
They probably wouldn't want to.
That's what I'm thinking.
Nope, because I don't think that they could keep the narrative edge.
All the adult material.
Yeah, yes. It needs that in there because you can't find the light, until you can see the edge of the shadow. And this is something that I struggle with a lot. I put a lot of graphic stuff in my books, and it's not that I'm a particularly salacious person. I mean, or maybe I am. I don't know. Anyway, but I think that contrast is one of the things that makes a book good, and it's what I like to read. I don't even know if that's what's good. I like to read stuff like that. And in order for someone to root for you to put the bad guy down, he needs to do something really bad. And I
agree.
I throw it on the line of this with a couple of my stories, especially in Evil Grows in the Dark. In 3 of the, actually all of the stories, I don't know. But you essentially what I'm saying is I don't think that I could work with a religious media company because, and for obvious reasons, their audience doesn't want that to consume that kind of content. It's not because I'm not religious, but it doesn't mean that I have any enmity towards religious folks. It's not like that at all. I just, I don't think creatively it would work. But if somebody else wants to make a movie out of my stuff, give me a call.
For sure.
Yep.
Bethany says, what the hell did I just read? Also need this to be a shirt. Bethany, your wish is my command. It'll be a shirt by next week.
Yes.
If this became a video game, would it have to be RPG or first-person shooter?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
I think it's got to be an RPG.
Yeah?
Yeah. You've got to talk to people. A
lot of emotional stakes.
Yeah, you got to be able to interact and make choices other than whether to shoot them in the head or the chest.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a team game too that you can play in multiplayer.
Oh yeah.
So it's got to be a massive, what's it called? A massive something, whatever they call it nowadays. The ones I can't play, I wander around in oblivion for years.
Those really complex ones, yeah.
Quite literally.
Hopefully Shannon gets back in here soon.
I feel like I really don't have time for video games.
Yeah, I know. We got to write books, right? After this series, what is next for Kent Shawn?
Okay, Yay. I'll try to answer that. So all of my timelines have been thrown into absolute chaos, partially because of my cover designer. I have to stick with the same cover designer. If you've seen the covers, obviously it has to be the same guy.
There's a theme.
We've already kind of come to an arrangement on what we have left to do together, and so some of it's going to depend on him. Like the last book will probably be ready to go before the cover is, and then I want to get all the books out this year. I was going to try to get them all out by May or June, but it's May, and I had a trip to Korea that lasted longer and was a little bit more hard than I thought. 9 months in Korea, so I'm kind of right now trying to come up with a schedule. So we're going to put out Forsaken this next month, or as soon as the cover allows. The other book's already written. It goes to the editor, almost already written. It goes to the editor May 23rd, and that book's called Defiance, and it's going to focus on Harriet Hardy is going to be the main character of the series. However, we're going to focus on a different character for that book. It'll be a shorter novel sandwiched between two very large, very emotionally exhausting books. So I wanted to put a book that was less emotionally exhausting between those two whoppers.
Give you a little breather.
We'll have a shorter, much more playful book in between, as playful as you can get in my version of Los Angeles. So that's going to focus on a character called Aiden Lee, which I hope people will enjoy that I invented for Forbidden. After that, I have two series I want to work on. One is a cross between urban fantasy and science fiction. It's set in contemporary world, and it's based off of a dysfunctional family of people that have acquired superhuman abilities through a symbiotic life form that of unknown origin. It's not so much focused on that. That's just to make the situation worse. It's essentially a very bad woman gets the power first, and she latches people to her with the power. She gives them gifts, but she also takes control of their lives. And she finds a handsome young man that she wants to be her companion, and he breaks up with her and he goes into hiding. And of course, she's a very, very dangerous woman named Willa. Original title for the book was Kill Willa.
Willa.
And so essentially what we have is a rebel from her dysfunctional and evil family, and what he does to kind of rise up and take back control of his life. And this book is called Charged. A side note, this book was completely plotted and outlined with my 14-year-old daughter. We came up with it together.
Whoa, nice.
I'm gonna give her co-writing credit. So
nice.
That's one, and that series will probably be 4 or 5 books long, potentially with a couple of novellas thrown in. Next is I have come up with my own pretty hard sci-fi novel. But again, my stuff, even if there's magic or sci-fi, it's going to be mostly character driven. And the first book of that is written, and it's called The School. Quick elevator pitch of The School is that it's far future, and we started to colonize distant stars by finding an elemental substance that allows us to travel interstellar distances. But it's limited. You can only bring a certain amount of mass. So as we've settled these worlds, we've had to do it in kind of a low-tech way, because you can't bring a lot of heavy stuff with you. And basically, the colonies are protected by a new version of the Ranger Regiment. And essentially, you get in Space Rangers instead of Space Marines. However, the plot is that an elderly fellow's son goes to what's called the school, which is Ranger School on an entire planet. And this school is brutal. It's a 50% death rate, and most people don't pass. So he's told that his son has died, and he says he doesn't believe it. And the instant he's told that his son dies, he volunteers, and he's not a combat guy. He's like a tech on a ship. He volunteers for training, which no one can be denied to volunteer training, and blasts himself across the galaxy on a one-way trip to find out what happened to his son. So he volunteers to go through the training, Space Ranger training in the school, to try to unravel the mystery of what happened to his son, David.
That's awesome, dude.
So both of those series will be kicking off hopefully next year.
Wow. Can I just say, I know that, like me, Kent, you go down to the ideas shop and you go in there and you buy a couple of ideas and then you work on them. So I'm not going to ask the next question. It's where do you get your ideas, Kent? Everywhere, he's going to say.
It's actually a terrifying question.
I know. That's why I asked it.
Because like Neil Gaiman says, and Stephen King also says, like, we have no idea, and it scares the crap out of us, because what if they just stop coming? I never have a shortage of ideas. I don't know which one to write next is the biggest problem. So I'm just going to write all of them.
Yeah,
I will say, I'm a big believer, though, in if you imagine a cool world where something's going on and you haven't imagined a cool character conflict, you really haven't imagined anything yet.
Yeah, it's not ready.
Backdrops are decorations. I think of genre in two ways. I separate content genre from reality genre. Like, a reality genre is sci-fi, fantasy, but all that stuff is window dressing until you have a person that is forced to change in a way that's incredibly uncomfortable for them. So that's always what I'm focused on. Like, I wanted to write a sci-fi novel because I like space. Yay, space. And I wanted it to be I wanted the physics, for the most part, to be correct. And I knew I wanted that to be what I was writing. But I didn't have anything until I had a father going to find his lost son. I actually have
cool idea.
Yeah, it's got to be the character, always.
For sure.
So in terms of ideas, though, they're all already there. I mean, there's only so many stories. Now what you do is you take those tropes and those situations, rags to riches, riches to rags, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, boy kills girl, whatever you got. There's only so many ways to mix and mash that stuff. I always use the musical thing, like there's only 8 notes.
You can create endless music with those 8 notes.
Yeah, so like what the challenge is to do, and it's the same thing if you use the identity crisis portion of Blind Spot as an example. I thought about all the stuff that I thought of, which Fight Club is one of them, Face Off. I just drew a blank. But there was like 5 identity crisis stories that I thought about, and I'm like, okay, I can't do any of that. So the idea is to try to take an old trope and make it new.
Yeah, well, the one that springs to mind is Memento.
Which,
yeah. Which I've still not figured out the movie yet. So yeah,
it's a complex one. You should see Chris Nolan talk about how he wrote it. Like, he needs a blackboard to explain it, and you're still like, wait, what? How did you do this?
No.
Shannon, one final question from you before we make the big reveal tonight and start heading our way out. Any last questions for Mr. Shawn? Oh, Mike, you're muted. Oh, we still can't hear you. I'm sorry, Shannon. Oh, no. What's going on?
Oh, sugar, she said.
Oh, well, I'll throw one up here until you get your mic figured out. This was, would you ever consider writing under a female pen name? And if so, what would you write?
I actually have considered that. So my wife reads tons of romance. some of it I can't read because I get physically embarrassed. Like I'm sitting there going, oh, couldn't write that. However, like Marie Moning's the name. She wrote a Fever series, which I really liked. And I think I could find a fantasy or sci-fi version with a little romance that I could write, come up with a female pen name. It's a great market. It's the biggest. You want to find the easiest market to write in, write romance. Great. But I would have to find a story and a conflict that I like to start a series on. And that would have to come first. But yeah, I thought about doing that, and I thought about having a pen name to write kids' books with my kids. Like we would write kids' books together.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'm
Well
having all
done.
kinds of tech issues today.
I know it sucks. I'm sorry.
So I had heard when we were discussing this in one of the Tuber Book Club meetings that we had that you had Pants, this novel, and now you said you become a plotter or somewhere in between. Do you think that had you plotted this novel, would that have changed anything in the storyline?
Obviously, lots.
You think so? Okay.
But what I would want to say that one of the things I learned to do in plotting is to not stop putting myself in corners. Hi, Ava. One of the things I really stress about even plotting is plotting should be discovery writing. So I have this trick I do, which I have to rename it because some other writing book took this name, but I used to call it The Power of 10. I got to come up with a new name. So now whenever I need to come up with I hit a corner, a plot point, or something I'm trying to come up with something original for, I make myself come up with 10 completely different ways to do it. And this is what keeps me from getting into the plotting hole, which is easy solutions to problem. Here's the problem with the first thing that you come up with, and this is a problem for pantsers. The first thing you come up with, you're going to understand this, Shannon, is your mind using a heuristic. It's going to do the most energy efficient thing to come up with an idea. So it's usually something you've seen a lot before.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do something original, I would just tell everybody, when you come up, I need a new character to walk on stage. It's going to be the mentor character. How am I going to pull this off? Come up with 10 completely different characters and challenge yourself to come up with something you think won't work. Try to find things that are incredibly difficult to do, because those are the things that are going to be special and are going to shine. And will you sometimes miss? Yes, but no game is fun that you always win. I would say go for it and really push yourself and try something different. I'm going to keep doing that no matter what, even in the more commercial things I try to write. And one of the reasons is it gives me a buzz. But the other reason is everybody's already heard that crap before. I wanted to write a different Lucifer. I wanted to write a different kind of angel. I didn't want them to all be hearts and, I wanted them to be dangerous and frightening.
Yeah.
And I think that if you really want to find what you have special to share with everyone else, you're going to have to dig, because on the surface is just all the stuff that you've ever seen before. So challenge yourself to try some things that make you really uncomfortable. And if nothing you're writing makes you uncomfortable, you're probably just rewriting someone else's story.
I can't think of a better note to end the interview proper on. Two things real quick. Number one, I saw earlier in the chat and I wanted to mention it and I forgot. I want to go back to it. Bethany is apparently very much under the weather today, food poisoning and dehydrated, and she's in here giving us love. So Bethany, please feel better. Take care of yourself. Drink lots of water. Get lots of rest. Please
sorry
feel better.
to hear that.
And Jenna is, was it Jenna? No, yeah, it was Ava actually, letting us know that Colin, you are also under the weather today.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's Ava's son.
Gotcha.
And
Okay,
I was just asking how because he was at the hospital earlier today.
Gotcha.
I was just asking.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. All right, well, I think that it's time to make the big reveal. What do you guys think? Next,
I think next week we're going to do the reveal, are we?
Next week. Yeah, we could do that. We can wait another week.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's wait another week. It's fine. There's nobody really antsy to find out what's happening.
You're literally going to kill Richard. You got to stop.
All right. Let's do it. Here we go. Let's find out. This poor bastard campaigned his ass off,
He
and
really
it paid
did.
off. Richard, you earned it, buddy. Full disclosure, you were way ahead as of days ago, and you probably could have stopped, but I didn't want you to because I was getting signups. So I didn't tell you. Nightmare Tenant is our next book, everybody. Nightmare Tenant is our next book. Now, as far as scheduling is concerned, I was hoping to take 2 weeks off and come back on the 24th, meaning that we would start the book proper next week on the 10th. We would have 2 weeks to read as much as we're going to read. I don't know how long Nightmare Tenant is, actually. I haven't looked at it.
I'll look it up.
It's about 40
184 pages.
184 pages.
40,000.
40. Okay, so what are we thinking? Half and half again? Sounds good?
Yeah.
Let me see. That looks like 184 divided by 2 is what? 90,
92.
92.
92?
Yeah.
That's toward the end of chapter 12. Or right. No, that's actually in the middle of chapter 12. So we could stop at 12 or go to 13.
Okay.
Go to 13.
Go to
That's a
13,
good
lucky
idea,
13?
Yeah.
All right, chapters 1 through 13. And we're going to get together on the 24th of May to discuss that first half. And then 2 weeks after that would be June 7th for the latter half. Is everybody cool with that?
Yep, absolutely.
It's going to be a busy week, but yes, that would be perfect because then I can plug my book that's coming out on June 6th.
Bingo, bango, everybody wins.
I'm
Kent
I'm gonna
Shawn,
read it. It's actually been a little while.
have you already read it?
I read the I think I read the beta and the.
Hey man, if it's not too late, if you want to join in the book club and join us for the discussions, you're more than welcome. Barrett Laurie will be joining us for the next book, actually. So we're Shannon. To your point, if it's a busy week, or Jenna, things have come up in the past. Call in Tyler. So if anything comes up, we at least have other alternates that it won't feel quite so empty as last time. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be here.
All right, sounds good.
So will I.
All right, very nice. Full house. Kent Shawn, thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for talking to us and to our lovely chat. Thank you for bringing your crazy people over here too. I love them to death. They're so awesome, and they love the hell out of you. I'll tell you what.
Hey, can I say something?
Go for it. Yes.
Real quick.
Take the floor.
Stop sending me emails about YouTube. We're gonna try. The kids want to make YouTube videos. I was kind of backing off of it, just to write books. But I'm gonna try to start putting some YouTube videos again. So stop emailing me. Thank you very much.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah,
Friendly reminder, everyone. We have commemorative T-shirts for today's stream and our historic first author interview here. We read author tuber books. We review author tuber books. We discuss them and dissect them. If you have not yet joined our book club, the link is in the description below for you to sign up. If you would like one of these or any of my other awesome shirts, I'm wearing one under this, but I'm not going to disrobe in front of you right now. There's lots of awesome stuff in there for you guys to find. And the coupon code, once again, scrolling down at the bottom, BISFOK, butts in seats, fingers on keyboard. Right, Kent? That's right. Guys, thank you so very much. Chat, thank you so very much. Richard, congratulations on your win. We're going to be tearing your book apart. Barrett will be fantastic on the panel. Yes, he will be. Thank you so much, everybody. And, well, I think that's it, you guys. We're out.
All right.
Right on Writers. Bye.
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 See you later.